Okay, this probably should be fairly short. Okay, only a couple pages of this in your book, but some interesting things to point out here with the endocrine system. All right, first of all, when making comparisons to the nervous system, first of all, what do they both have in common? Well, they are a communication system. Okay, the endocrine system and the nervous system are both communication systems. Now they communicate differently. The nervous system communicates with an electrical charge and neurotransmitters, and the endocrine system communicates through the secretion of hormones. All right. So another difference then is the nervous system is lightning fast, okay, and the endocrine system is slower relative to the nervous system, but the effects of the hormones have a longer lasting effect over the body. Okay, and so this is from uh, head to toe. We have really a brain structure first. So it's part of the nervous system, part of the endocrine system, but the hypothalamus is, uh, I keep doing that with the mouse. The hypothalamus is um, right above the pituitary gland. So the gland is here deep in your brain. Okay, kind of straight back behind your eyes here. Okay, this is an accurate representation. And the hypothalamus communicates to the pituitary gland. And then the pituitary gland secretes hormones that communicate to other glands. All right. Next is the parathyroid, helps regulate the level of calcium in the blood. The thyroid gland, big on metabolism, okay, which is very important in weight regulation. And metabolism is, we'll talk more about metabolism when we look at the motivation of eating and issues with obesity and things of that nature. Then the adrenal gland, the inner part triggers the fight or flight response. Okay, so when we talked about in the last video about norepinephrine and epinephrine being released, that adrenaline flow, that is what kind of gives us our energy in those stress situations. The pancreas regulates the level of sugar in the blood. So again, glucose is going to be released if we need energy. So in a sympathetic nervous system response to stress or something that we fear or anything along those lines, it's going to start increasing the amount of sugar in the body. And then we have the testes in the male and ovaries in females that are releasing sex hormones to um, begin the development of secondary sex characteristics during puberty and among other responsible among other behaviors over the um, course of the lifespan. For example, testosterone. Okay, so um, these are kind of regulated um, through the endocrine system, and some of these have unique changes over our entire lifespan. Some are responding to what is happening in the brain, and as I mentioned before, it's a slower system but longer lasting. Okay. So these hormones do travel to the brain. So that's another thing to keep it in mind, is that while the brain might be triggering the release of those hormones by how it's interpreting its environment and things like that, um, those hormones also have an effect on how the brain responds as well. Okay, so the brain. This example here is, the brain has to interpret its environment as being stressful. It's going to communicate to the pituitary gland, to communicate to the adrenal gland to release epinephrine or adrenaline, and that's going to increase. That's going to have an effect on the brain to, again, tell the heart to increase, blood pressure is going to increase, the pancreas is going to increase blood sugar, and all of that is going to be kind of interpreted as excitement or a response to some sort of emergency. So it's this kind of back and forth between the brain communicating to the endocrine system communicating to the brain, and back and forth until, in this example, maybe the perceived emergency is taken care of. As I mentioned on the first slide, the hypothalamus, right here above it communicates. It's no. It's well, I should say it's no surprise that these are located next to each other because they communicate to each other. So they then the pituitary gland communicates to the rest of the endocrine system. So you might have heard the pituitary gland called the master gland, and the master of the master gland is the hypothalamus. Oh. All right. So we have the adrenal glands consist of the adrenal medulla. This is pretty specific for, AP Psych. I wouldn't say you would have to know about the endocrine system in this much detail. But you should have a sense that the adrenal glands does secrete epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline, noradrenaline, as they're sometimes called. And that is what gives us the energy that we need in a sympathetic nervous system response. So kind of these two together, the fight or flight response and the blood sugar that we talked about. The ability to reproduce, the development during puberty, sexual arousal through the lifetime, all of these might be affected by the amounts of hormones that are released by the testes and ovaries. So we'll talk a little bit more about these hormones in another chapter. All right, and that's it. And then the next video we'll get to the brain.